So feel free to ask questions in there, and Danielle will bring those up, and we'll be sure to pause throughout the webinar. I'd like to turn it over to our friends at NAU for quick intros. Holland, maybe we start with you.
Sure. My name's Holland Fields, and I've worked in advising at NAU for the last 5 years plus, and I'm excited to be here.
Great. Alyssa?
Hello, everyone. I'm Alyssa Chavez. I'm one of Holland's colleagues. I've worked in university advising at NAU for 4 years this summer, and I'm really excited to chat about our experience with InScribe today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I have to be frank, this is one I'm really excited about. So I joined InScribe I just hit my year anniversary, so was not actively involved in kind of the launching of this project, but I've gotten to know a number of the members of the team at NAU, and I think this is a really, really interesting use case that can be massively impactful. So super excited to hear more from you. I'm going to just talk a little bit. Oh, before I do that, see, this is why Katie's so good at this. So I will get there, but we love to know where you're coming from, the institution, your role at the institution, and what really brought you to this webinar, so we can make sure that we're touching on those themes and answering your questions. And I think it's always great for the broader group here to know who's who. So if you could do that in the chat as we sort of continue on over the next few slides. Danielle, anything to share on the chat?
Yeah, I would just like to note that we are recording today's session. I'm sure that Zoom yelled that at you when you joined our conversation. But we will send the recording to everyone that registered probably within the next couple of days. And then the other thing I didn't think we noted is we originally were hoping to have Terry and Helen here today. Unfortunately, they could not make it. So we are really excited to hear from Holland and Alyssa.
I suspect we're in very capable hands.
I do as well.
So good. All right. So we always like to share a little bit on our North Star, which is the idea of leveraging technology to help drive sort of real world human connection. And for us, what that means is helping students build social capital, build a sense of belonging, feel better connected to the overall sort of universal university community, because we know that the impact on student outcomes as a result of that experience can be massive. When we talk about belonging, and I think in this context, it's really, really interesting because we know that when students enter their educational journey, they're coming from loads of different places. My kids will be the beneficiary of having two parents that went to a university, and heck, I've worked with universities for 20 years, so they will enter their experience. My oldest starts in the fall, so that'll be new for us. But even those students that are the beneficiary of all that social capital coming from a family, a community that is very familiar with higher education, even for them, it can be a scary experience. They're doing something very, very new. So then when we talk about non-traditional learners, adult learners who maybe are coming back to higher education or for the first time after not being in a classroom for 10 years, or we're talking about first gen students that um, don't necessarily have that same experience, that sense of belonging can be significantly challenged, right? So we want to leverage community to help students build that sense of belonging, because we know that it can drive really powerful outcomes when we do so. When we talk about social capital, sort of the other piece of this, or a big component that belonging's a part of. So creating an environment where students can feel more comfortable participating with others, building that network of connections of mentors and sort of peers and near peers and student resources, or resources for students on campus. Building that those connections early, building trust in those connections, feeling comfortable to go out and ask questions or say I need help. We talked about facilitating belonging, but also giving students a place to give back to their peers down the path. These are all such critical components to the overall sort of health of the broader student community, particularly those students that have limited social capital entering their experience. So with that said, I do want to talk about Northern Arizona. I am in my 20 years, I have sadly never been to Flagstaff. I look at this picture, I'm like, looks gorgeous. We Katie, Danielle, and I all live in Colorado, but I think you could give us a run for our money with scenic views. But I'd love for if you could share a little bit. We have a slide prepared, but share a little bit with us about NAU.
Yeah, as you stated, our main campus at NAU is in Flagstaff, which is just a very beautiful place, a place in Arizona that snows, believe it or not. And so on our Flagstaff and online and our statewide locations, we have about over 28,000 students. So we have some campuses in the North Phoenix area, one in Tucson area, and Yuma. And we do have a high percentage of first-gen students. I know, Aaron, you were kind of talking about that is a good way that InScribe is helping first-gen students by helping them with that sense of belonging. And so, of course, our percentage of first-gen students does kind of fluctuate from year to year, but on average is about 40%, which is about half of our student body. That's a pretty significant number. And then in 2021, we received a Hispanic Serving Institution designation, which means that at least 25% of our undergraduate students identify as Hispanic Latina.
Amazing. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Holland, anything else to add?
Well,
Not
if
to
you
pick
all want
on
to
you.
come to Flagstaff, let Alyssa and I host you. We'll give you a tour.
I
But no, I have nothing to add. Alyssa covered it.
I will gladly take you up on that offer. So it's on the to-do list. So thank you for that. So I want to start by again, as I mentioned, I wasn't part of the team when you went through this journey of exploring how digital communities could potentially help NAU and your students. But what challenges specifically were you trying to address when you first started evaluating digital communities?
Totally. Well, when a student starts out in college, especially if they're first year, and being a small town in Flagstaff, most first students are not from our town. And so they're in a brand new space. And it's that community, it's that connection, and it's helping them have a place to go. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I find myself with this and I work in the institution in higher ed, but I'm like, who do I ask this question to? So it makes a really safe space for a student to be like, I have this question. This is important. Where do I go? And then what happens is they ask their question and they are given responses from peers and us and all this stuff. So I'm getting off topic, but I think we saw honestly more of an opportunity to connect students and to onboard them. And I think what COVID did was push us into this online world. And there's so many different departments. They need to talk to financial aid, advising, they need to do campus living. And it's like there's so many people and who do I talk to? And so our InScribe hub has given us one landing spot to really integrate and support students and feel like, oh, you're not going to be spread thin or stressed out by where all these other people you should know or where to go and higher ed vocabulary, but we can meet you where you're at in one space. And so we saw that opportunity. And I mean, we've only, obviously we'll keep going, but have things to rave about it. But yeah, I mean, everything else is on here too. There's diverse student needs, like, first gen students coming in from different places, the gaps in onboarding, like we said, like sometimes students fall through the cracks. And so this is a way to really capture them all, and really support them before the semester starts. Like they're so excited and nervous, and it's that like angsty, like, what do I do? And so we really can bring them in one spot. It's limited advisor reach. We can reach all of them. I think we had in the first month over 1 million views.
Wow.
That's a crazy number. Like I can't even comprehend that. So
Huge.
the reach is huge. Um, and then it's consistent because we created this process where we have a team of people who are checking on posts and responses daily. And then there's ways for them to build community outside of the academic piece, which that's really fun to see and talk about. But those are some challenges, and InScribe has helped, I think, really support student needs and the way we support students and connect with them.
Yeah, and two quick ads. I think one challenge is getting students acclimated to that NAU email that they're given, and then it's like they may be logging into their email for the first time in June and overwhelmed with all of the emails from these scary departments like the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. And then they kind of get overwhelmed and disengage. And so having a platform like InScribe that feels familiar to this Gen Z community that is reminiscent of social media, that is really easy for them to engage with and comprehend, has also been a really great kind of like link of like where you check your email, and also we're going to make sure that if you're not, that you're not falling through those cracks.
That's huge. We hear this a lot from institutions that you invest so much time and money on resources for students, but oftentimes, and I'm not saying it's necessarily this, it was this case at NAU, but oftentimes those resources are exceptionally siloed. And to your point, they get, you know, 30 different emails and they have different advisors, different people with different roles that support them in different ways in campus. And I can only imagine it's been a long time for me, but I'm sort of trying to flash back to when I first started at my alma mater, and you are drinking through that fire hose, right? And um, sometimes if you miss something, you may not be quick to go back and try to figure out the answer. It may not be easy, or you don't even know where to start to get that answer. So I can see how having a community, a place where you can go to ask those questions that feels safe and convenient and has a certain level of immediacy to getting those questions answered. I can see how that'd be really helpful. Cool. Thank you for that. That was quite helpful. I know Katie's off camera and substantially under the or significantly under the weather, but Katie, if you want to jump in with any points, don't hesitate to do so. Although I won't put any pressure on you, but yeah.
I'm gonna try and put all my amazing thoughts into the chat.
That-
So
That's perfect. I love
I
it.
do,
I love
I,
it.
I do want to mention just something real quick. So first, Holland, we have somebody in the chat that said amazing reach. Like they're just as excited about this as you are. But second, if you do have questions, please drop them in the chat and we will make sure that we answer them live for you as well.
Terrific. Danielle, thank you. And you'll yep, jump in as questions arise. I would love to in the chat if you want to share kind of the things that you're doing now if you're involved in this world of sort of that first year experience, the things that you found have been helpful in helping supporting students in this sort of critical time in their educational experience. I want to chat just because we haven't, for those of you that don't know InScribe or don't know what a peer community really is, it is that place, that centralized location to share all those resources that we talked about that universities and colleges spend a tremendous amount of time and effort developing to make it really easy for students to access. It's a place for advisors, coaches, where they can connect with their students regardless of location or modality. I know NAU had started supporting primarily their on-campus students, but now are expanding to support their online students as well, which is great. But having that flexibility to support students no matter where they are, and then creating this safe and I think Alyssa, you had mentioned this familiar place to ask questions, to overcome challenges, gain confidence is really at the core of what peer communities were designed to do. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your virtual community? And we have a screenshot up of what the advising hub looks like.
Yeah, so one thing again that we really try and be mindful of are those things that students are maybe getting in their email, but maybe not attuned to. So you can see at one point during in the semester, the spring 2025 course withdrawal deadline was pinned. And so we really try and make sure that those most important and most pressing topics or ideas that could be a barrier to a student's success or retention are really highlighted. But then, of course, also encouraging students to interact with one another, gain community. As Holland stated, we have folks in advising, monitoring, and moderating the hub to ensure that things are going well, ensuring that as students are answering their questions that they're accurate. And then again, also just modeling some of that positive interaction. We've been able to do some really awesome strategic outreach through the InScribe. And so again, as advisors, one thing that we're always thinking about is enrollment. And so when enrollment came around, we put up just a quick poll of like, hey, how are you feeling about your schedule? Like, you're feeling good? Do you need to connect with an advisor? Do you need an advisor to reach out to you? And so since InScribe allows you to see how students responded, even though it's anonymous to the rest of them, for those students who said like, I need an advisor to reach out to me, we were able to pull those students and then have their advisors reach out to them, which feels like a really awesome way to close the loop. And again, engage with our students in a different way to kind of meet them where they're at. And so I think that's been really, really positive. And one thing that we also found, and we're super excited kind of looking forward, is that a lot of the questions, especially over the summer, were financial aid related or housing related. And so coming into the next school year, we're actually going to have some folks from those other departments help moderate, as well as some of our NAU 100 peer instructors moderate as well. Because it's different having a peer being like, what kinds of clubs are you enjoying versus me and Holland being like, hey guys. And so we're really excited to kind of expand that moderation and see how that kind of helps our students engage in different ways.
I love it.
The other thing that's really sweet to see is they put something out there and it gets a reaction or a response within 24 hours and usually sooner. And so it may not always be from us. What's our favorite thing to see is when students help students, and we'll go in and be like, hey, thumbs up. Thanks for giving them the right info on that math class. Or sometimes, students don't always give the right info, but we'll be like, hey, again, thanks for diving in. And here's a link, and an advisor will call you about your question. And it is this like immediate feedback. So what it's doing is it's really building this like, oh, my questions matter, and I'm listened to, I'm heard, uh, and you're not just like left. So that's been really sweet to see that engagement, and you see that trust built over time to where then they continue to ask more questions. And then it turns in by the end of the year, like, hey, I'm looking for a roommate. And there's like, wow, that's wild. That's so cool. So that's been a really cool piece in that it's been a daily interaction that students get responses.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Danielle, any questions from the chat?
No questions at this point. I just saw an emoji like float up the screen. That was a new to me. Did everyone see that? Yeah.
I did. Yeah, that was
Nice.
cool.
Fun. It was a
I
little
love
party.
it.
No questions, but I will encourage everyone to please drop your questions in the chat. Oh, another heart. Okay, I'm just going to get distracted now. This is not a good feature for today's webinar. But yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat.
We love to hear those. Oh, go
I
ahead.
have a question based on what you just said, so I'm really glad you brought it up. See, I can't help myself, but I can get involved
I
in
knew
this
you
question.
couldn't.
Well, a couple of things. So you mentioned moderation, which we always get questions around moderation, like, is it a ton of work? You know, is it adding to somebody's plate? So I'd love if you could speak to that a little bit. I hope I'm not stepping on slides that are coming. And then also, there's always a little bit of hesitation about like, well, what if students are sharing information that's not accurate? It sounds like, how did you get yourself and your university to a place where you would feel comfortable knowing that might happen and you had the opportunity to correct? Has that been an issue for you at all?
Yeah, I think what's been really helpful. Well, we got into this not really knowing. We're like, this is how it's going to be. It's brand new. And thankfully, our supervisor was wise enough to be like, I need to get a team of people who are good on the spot and know how to get information, and not nervous about not knowing the answer, but figuring it out. And so it started, I think, with a team of 5 of us all across advising. And so we shared the load. We each took a day and we meet every other week to check in. And what we've noticed are seasons. So summer and the first month of school, and then around enrollment time, it is busy. And we're giving an hour a day to like an hour a week, essentially, but a day for the whole team, to give space and time to read responses, to check things. And then I'd say even Alyssa and Helen probably did even more of double checking responses. So, but then when we get to like, the end of the year, it's more just double checking and students are interacting with themselves. So then it turns into 15 minutes of me checking in and just seeing what's going on. So that is helpful to kind of, if you're starting up or trying to figure out the timing of it, a team is super important. And if you don't have a team, then just knowing there's going to be seasons that are going to take more time than others. Yeah, Alyssa, is there anything you would add? I feel like you were more
Yeah, I
on that
think
planning
one
side.
thing that has been really successful in terms of like ensuring that the moderation is like even, it's just really thinking about like Holland was saying, your season. And so especially in that really peak time enrollment and like summer, we actually have 2 people moderate on Mondays. So over the weekends, there's someone who moderates in the morning and in the afternoon. And so definitely, like Holland was saying, a team of people is essential. And something that we also found really great success in was just building an InScribe Teams chat. So that way, if there was something that we're like, hey, I'm not sure, like, can you tone check this response? We were able to kind of connect with those other moderators pretty quickly and brainstorm with each other. Katie, I know one of your other questions was kind of talking about students maybe sharing inaccurate information. I would say that our students were really awesome about trying to engage with their best knowledge. So if there were students who did not know, maybe they would comment like, this is a great question. Like, I'm wondering the same thing. And most of the time when students would have inaccuracies, it was like 80% right. And then there was just like a small little tweak that needed to be added. And so it was really easy for us to kind of give that correction while still maintaining a really positive atmosphere of like Holly was saying, like, thank you so much for sharing. Like, this piece is awesome. And like, there's actually this piece of it is actually this. And so I would say that in our community, our students really took responding to each other with accuracy really seriously. And so that made our job a lot easier when it came to like reading and double checking for accuracy.
That's awesome. And I think we've seen that with other communities similar, that students like, they want to be helpful and not distracting. In terms of the flow of conversation at those peak periods, is it safe to say those questions would have come to you through some different mechanism, through email or other things, and you've moved into the community, or was it like all net new?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I'm glad you brought that up because I wrote it down to be like, I want to bring that up later. What it's helped do is, so like, let's say they'll ask a random question about what type of class should they add? And we could help them on the spot. And that would have come through maybe the advisor inbox, or they would have had an hour-long appointment set up in a month. And it's like, now it's opened up that advisor appointment for a student who had a million questions versus just one general question. And so we could save that space and they'd get answered right away. So that's been the benefit of it. Like eventually, I think those questions would have come in, but maybe they get lost or slip through the cracks, or they're stuck in someone's inbox somewhere, or by the time they answer it, the situation's been like, it's not relevant anymore. So yeah, it has, I think, for in the advising world, helped us to support them on the spot and save them, not save them, but like give them their time back so they don't have to go have an hour-long advising appointment to just answer one little question.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like efficiency on both sides of the
Yep.
table, and based on the staffing model you and Alyssa were describing, like you've prioritized getting back to these students as quickly as possible, which I think is fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna stop now.
No, it's all great questions. Thank you, Katie. Terrific. And Alyssa Holland, thank you so much for the answers. I love that you're using polls. It's an easy way to get students to engage at scale and help you gain some insights about students who are participating in the community. So that's great. And I love hearing these stories about these really authentic connections. We know that even if the entire experience that students had was in the real world, was walking into offices or asking students questions in the student union. There becomes this disparity between students that are very eager to find those answers and others that are maybe naturally introverted. So I think it's a great place for those students to ask questions and support one another. So that's great to hear. Um, so can you tell a little bit about how advising is structured?
You want me to take this one, Alyssa? Um, so yeah. So are you asking how advising is structured or how we structure it with the InScribe, just to clarify?
I think in the context of InScribe is great.
Okay, yeah, that's what I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, advising, we have such high caseloads of students to where we're always trying to be like, we need more money and more advisors. But while we don't have those things right now, what can we do and how do we get creative? So we structured it, I think, to say, let's give this a space to where students feel supported and seen immediately. And so, yeah, we are sharing the deadlines, the important dates, the things that are going to support students right away. And if they miss them or if they don't catch them, it would cause problems later on. And so we're finding a lot of students are like dropping classes when they need to, or adding them when they need to, or meeting with advising when they need to. Yeah, and it's structured right now to where it's supporting advising, but everything we're finding in higher ed, everything's connected to everything, right? So like, even though advising saying, hey, we're owning this, what's been really cool to our campus partners is we're saying, hey, we all need to work together. We all need to be in this space. And they see that because they're like, oh, Alyssa and Holland keep asking me financial aid and housing questions. I'm like, what if you got on here and helped? So it's been really awesome. I think from an institution staffing point of view, it's been a uniting thing for us. And I think that overflows to student care and support, that it becomes more student centered and that they are being supported by people who are working well together. So I'm probably diverting from what you're talking about.
No, I think this is
Getting
great.
past
Yeah,
it,
thank you.
but it's super helpful. And I think Yeah, I like the bullet point that's popping out to me right now is accessible anytime, anywhere. Like I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
I can answer questions like if I'm in parent pickup, picking up my kid, and I have to wait in that hour-long line. And I can be like, oh, what's going on in InScribe? But same for students. If they're like, hey, it's 3 a.m., I can't call advising right now. Please, no one's going to answer. But I can answer here or ask a question here. So yeah, I hope that helps.
That's great. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. And I love the idea of when you're in line picking up your kids, like having that access to be able to answer questions on the fly. That's great.
We do have a question in the chat. Can you talk a little bit more about how you use it in new student orientation?
Yeah,
Alyssa.
so NAU, we recently remodeled how we do orientation. And so it's more of a virtual experience, and then our students move onto campus earlier, and that's kind of that in-person experience. And so, since that in-person experience is a little bit more delayed than it was, the InScribe is really a good place for that orientation pieces of like, hey, how's your housing going? Have you applied for financial aid? Have you enrolled in classes? And here's how you connect with all of these people and get through these processes. And so again, it's kind of a landing place while students wait for that in person, because even though they are given that information, having an interactive space still feels really important for them to get those questions answered as they're navigating this new system, these new languages, and these new processes.
It also is providing equity. What I've noticed is the students, when we used to have in-person orientation, only some would come. And those who had money and parents who could take them were the ones that showed up, which is awesome. I'm glad. But that left a whole group of students not able to tap into that experience. And it's almost the confidence begets confidence. Like then they're, not starting with the same feel of, oh, I belong here because they weren't at an in-person orientation months before school started. And so I think it's bringing equity in that space. And that feels really important for serving our students. It's saving them money. And what I also see is it's empowering them as students to become adults. If we're talking about the typical first year student experience, what we would notice at the orientations in person, when the parents came, they would lead the discussions. They would ask the questions, which is great. I'm a parent, I get it. But it's not giving the student space to feel empowered to do it themselves. And so this is also empowering students to own their adultness, their education, and that feels really important. And it's setting them up, I think, for greater success to have that equity and that empowerment.
I have a question about the structure of your community. So there's two purposes, right? Centralized space for pushing out information and making sure students get information from the institution. But then there's also this like peer support model. How do you support both of those in a singular space? How do you encourage students to connect with others while the institution is still pushing out additional information?
I think this is really something that the students have taken and ran with.
Mhm.
One of like my core InScribe memories was over the summer, a couple weeks after we launched, is one student kind of went in and was like, "Hey, my name's Alyssa, and I'm majoring in this, and I like blah 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 blah." And then all of the students started doing introductions and engaging with each other and saying, "Hey, Holland, I see that you like hiking. Me too. When we get to Flagstaff, like let's go on a hike." And another student like, "Did you know there's a hiking club?" And so I think that that's really cool, especially again with that online orientation model, is our students come in really hungry to start forming those connections and trying to find their people. And then as staff, I think it's us like really supporting that and commenting like this is some great conversation, or even like adding again in the example of students hiking, maybe we're the people who go in and it's like, hey, do you know there's a hiking club? But then in terms of like key dates and deadlines, we're also shouting out like, here's how to look at True Blue Connects, which is a space where you can look at clubs and events. And hey, like, let's do a club shout out. And so I think think that this is a space where we kind of let the students run with it. And again, we've been really lucky that our students have been so eager to use this platform for that. And then we just kind of get to go and like add a tidbit here or there because they're really excelling in that space.
Do you have guidelines that you put into your community to establish those norms?
Yes, yeah. So we worked with our partners over in the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities just to kind of make sure that our guidelines are kind of aligned with the policies of the universities and then even larger as a public institution in Arizona, the Arizona Board of Regents. And so they kind of helped us come up with some guidelines, but they really are quite flexible in terms of like be kind to each other and like and so there's really not much there and we really haven't encountered any issues. I know that when we were starting we're like what is this going to be like? Like are we going to face problems? But again, I think students know and like want this to be a positive space and they really show up really kind and really positive, which has been awesome to see.
And the only thing that was like maybe a not positive thing, it was a little funny, is someone was like, I have a really bad headache. And then this other student so kindly wanted to offer their prescription drugs. And we
Oh
were like,
no.
oh, no, no, no. We like, no. And so with that, we like worked with student rights and responsibilities to be like, what do we do? Like, they didn't do anything. This is illegal. The student genuinely, it's like, hey, I want to give you Tylenol, but like, this is not Tylenol. So I only bring that up of like, even in those, we were able to have a conversation with the student. They didn't get in trouble. We figured out the like, hey, you don't do this. But it was in a positive feedback way. But that was literally the only thing. Like when you asked that question, Danielle, I was just like, I don't know if we did anything. We just got really lucky with this cohort. But now what we're doing is paying attention.
Yeah.
And I think it'll happen again because students are hungry to connect. Like they're so excited for this new chapter in life to be like, who are going to be my new friends in college? But we're going to have some of these peer people supporting that. Like if a student doesn't kick it off like they did last year, I think we would nudge one of our peers to be like, hey, kick this off and say what you're excited about. And then I think it would happen naturally.
Yeah, I
Love
think kind of circling back to that guidelines, I would really recommend to anybody who's considering opening this type of community or even is to really connect with your conduct office at your institution because they're going to be the experts on those policies to make sure that like if something were to happen that there's something in place and that they are familiar with what InScribe is because since we had those conversations when that situation came up and we called them, they already knew what InScribe was, and it was a much streamlined process. So again, we're really grateful that nothing too crazy has happened, but they're definitely key partners in ensuring that things stay positive and stay healthy.
That is, yeah, I should add that it is rare across communities that we see bad behavior. And I think in that case, that was unintentional bad
Really.
behavior. Ultimately, I think
They were
someone,
just trying to help.
Mhm. But we have tools built into the system to help catch those things when they do happen. But it is quite rare, as our customers can attest. But great stories, Holland. I think you gave me a good reminder as a helicopter parent with a student entering college in the fall to back off a little bit and encourage my daughter to ask more questions. So that's great. But thank you both for that. Um, can you tell us about kind of how students access the advising hub?
Yeah, so they're obviously given an email. We with, here's what you can access. The other pieces of it are through reminders. So advisors or pretty much anyone who knows about InScribe can be like, hey, oh, go ask that question on the hub. That'd be awesome. And then advisors can like guide them through that process. Another thing is in our first year classes. So we have a first year seminar and an NAU 100 class, and then there's a few more. We integrate it into their Canvas shell. So this is a picture here showing there's a link and they can go straight to it from their Canvas shell. And So that's been awesome. Are there any other ways, Alyssa? I know there is one I'm
Yeah.
forgetting.
So on our NAU advising
Oh,
website,
yes.
there's a tab that's like how to connect with an advisor. And so InScribe is listed as one of those options. And then we try and also do some cross promotion on our other platforms. So I chair our social media committee. And so sometimes we will do like Instagram lives over the summer, which will integrate with the InScribe. But then I will have students like, hey, ask questions on InScribe, and then we'll answer them in this Instagram live. And so as we're kind of opening, we can kind of talk about like, here's where these questions came from. And like, if you're for a new first year student, like come check this out and like you can ask questions for our next live. And so I'm just really trying to be strategic about like where are all the places that we can try and plant this information, and how can we also inform our other campus partners as well to address this and talk about this resource in other spaces.
Another
I
quick
I
connection. Oh, go
Oh
for
no,
it.
I was just gonna say I love that Instagram Live idea. I need to now follow your Instagram account. I'd love to check that out in the real world, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, what I was going to add to this was there have been other teams, partners on campus that kind of heard about this and were like, oh, we need to let people know. And so there's this marketing group that reaches out to parents of incoming students, and they're saying, hey, remind your student, get connected to this. And so that's going to be new this year, and I'm super curious. But yeah, it is exciting to see other campus partners hearing about this, being like, why have we never had this before? This is amazing. And they want to like promote it for us. So we're not even having to be like, tell students like it's happening.
That's awesome. I love it. Love it. Terrific. Oh, sorry. Just any other things to touch on the community that I think we've given a pretty comprehensive overview, but because I do want to get into outcomes a little bit more.
I'll add one little thing. What's helpful is to go through the seasons, and we asked advisors and other campus partners, like, what are students coming to you with? What questions are they asking? And how can we be proactive and meet them before they have to ask that in a crisis or urgent time way? So, or timeline. So, just having like whatever your team is, finding the key people who are front lines with students and asking them, what are students coming to you with and how can we meet them with that? That's been helpful in helping create the content and the timeline of when we put that content out.
It's great. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
one other thing, if you are working in an institution or a department that does have other social medias like an Instagram, we've been able to do some collaboration, and it's been helpful since I sit in both of those spaces. And so we all know that our time is so precious, and so that's a really easy way to kind of collaborate. And maybe the InScribe makes this thing that can also be posted on the Instagram and vice versa. But I think one other thing that I would just really love to share is for our next year for InScribe, we're going to be starting a brand new community to kind of start off with a blank slate. And so we've been able to copy over the resources, but we wanted to let our students in our old community kind of know, like, this is going to be going away, and like thank you so much for creating this beautiful space. And there was actually a student who commented like, why are you getting rid of this? Like, this would be super helpful for new students. And so it's just been really cool. Like, of course, as staff are like, this is really awesome to see them connect, but to have students also recognize how special of a space this has been really cool as well.
love that. Terrific. Please keep the questions coming via chat. Well, we have that. So we've touched on a lot of these ideas. I know, Alyssa, you had talked about some of these really authentic sort of engagements that students were having. Any more to share? We have some screenshots of some of these actual conversations that have taken place, but anything anecdotal about these connections that students have made within the communities?
I think it's just been really special. One thing that kind of came out of this like paranormal conversation is like a bunch of students being like, we should create like a paranormal club. And so it's been really cool for students, again, to be eager and to be so willing to share their authentic selves in this space to kind of support them in that academic journey. Because we all know no one gets through college by themselves. And so it's been, again, really cool to see them support each other, not academically, but even socially. As school kind of started, there was a lot of students being like, hey, I have been like rotting in my bed all week. Like,
Mhm.
I want to hang out with somebody, and students be like, let's go get dinner together and this or that. And so again, students are just so eager to interact with each other and making sure that everyone in the space who's expressing not feeling that sense of belonging has an opportunity to feel like they belong at NAU.
I love it. Going back to thinking about that first year experience, it's so much of finding your people too, those people that conceivably will become your lifelong friends and giving I love this one because somebody acknowledges that they're introverted and giving them a place where it's easy to make those build those relationships. I absolutely love. Terrific. All right. And just touching on I think even more important, those students that don't feel seen, maybe on campus. How are you giving them opportunities to be heard? And I think we might have lost Holland for a second.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just ensuring that your space can be really flexible. Like if you're giving students a space, I think it's important to let them kind of own that space. And so I think for them to feel heard, it's really ensuring that when they have questions, even if they may not necessarily be like an institution's number one priority, still engaging and responding with the same level of care, because as we know, like that person aspect is what really helps drive retention forward. And so as a retention device, it's really important again to remain flexible and to engage positively, even if the question's not enrollment or class based.
Terrific.
I do want to
Danielle, were
give just
you?
a real quick time check. So we had about 10 minutes left, and I know we have a couple more things to get through. We do have an audience member that shared that this is what providing the space for students to connect and build community organically looks like. And I really love that for students because navigating higher ed can be challenging, which we all know. So thank you for sharing that in the chat as well.
All right, I want to get into and we've touched on a lot of the results. It's been great having both of you here to share those experiences, kind of the story, the impacts. But more specifically, just what have you learned about your students through their participation in these communities or in the community, I should say.
I think that I've learned that again, there's just that eagerness to engage. I know when we first started, it's like, are any of the students going to look at this? Are they going to ask any questions? And so that's been really great. And I think again, um, students are really eager to belong. And so ensuring that we're giving them those opportunities is really paramount to their success.
And I think we've learned too, when you meet students where they're at and in the ways that they feel seen and engaged, they know, like they will engage, they want to. So let's get out of the mindset of like students never check their email. It's like, yeah, this they should, they're going to learn how, but let's meet them where they're at. And when we do that, they're wiser and smarter and want to connect.
That's great. Um, so we'll get into, I know you've been able to pull some insights. You talked a little bit about knowing that there's these inflection points, there's these times during the year where you do know that student needs are going to be greater than maybe other periods of time. And I'm sure it's helpful having access to the data to get a better sense of when and how your students are engaging. But any feedback on that front?
I think it's again been just so amazing to see how willing they've been willing to engage. I know me and one of my friends, I'm like, I think I'm like in my influencer era because whenever I post something on Instagram or on InScribe, it gets like all of these views. And so I think it has been really great because again, we do have Instagram and other social medias, but InScribe really is the one where we've gotten the most traffic.
It's great. Thank you. Just talking a little bit about sort of the future evolution of how we're using the advising hub at NAU. Um, what are the kind of years to come look like?
Yeah, I mean, we started just with one group, and we're realizing like, oh, our online community of students who are only online, this is going to be perfect. And so launching in that space is going to be really important. And those are not typically incoming like 18-year-olds. And so it will be a little different, but I think similarly, it will help build community and collaboration amongst peers. And also connecting with our student affairs, enrollment management, just really bringing in all of our campus partners that all support students. And that feels really important and is in line with our mission as a university. And so this is a little tool that's helping us be like, oh yeah, we do work together well. And then, yeah, introducing more peer moderators and instructors. And they might have different roles than like Alyssa and I would, but we want their eyes on it. We want them to know what students are asking. And as students themselves to help kind of spur on some healthy conversations.
I love it. Liz, anything to add on the future? That's a uh, amazing feat from both of you. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I want to do sort of the shameless plug for InScribe, and I think it's been great for this group to hear it from our partners. But part of my responsibility as Chief Revenue Officer is just to share a little bit about kind of the impact on institutions. We really talk about you've heard some of that today, but the impact on really tangible outcomes, whether that be driving increased belonging, helping, which you see at Rio Salado College. We've got great case studies on our website if you visit that give you more detail on all of these. So I would encourage you to go and view those. But looking at impacts on persistence at places like University of Maryland Global Campus and Western Governors University, University of North Texas, and then helping drive really positive impacts on academic outcomes as well. So it's great. This is the use case we've talked about today has been is an exceptionally valuable one, but there's lots of different ways that we support institutions. When we think about how we really impact persistence in particular, I would argue that InScribe when we look at cost versus impact, is a pretty reasonable investment. And for most of our institutions, just saving a single student at a traditional university or a handful of students at a community college pays for InScribe. So Danielle is going to send out a survey when we wrap, and we'll give you a chance. If you do want to learn more about InScribe, we love to talk about sort of the challenges that you're facing at your institution and potentially how InScribe could support addressing those challenges. Please indicate on that survey if you'd like us to reach out. Otherwise, Paul and Alyssa, thank you so much. This was really, really awesome. I think it was very inspiring. Thank you. I know we just have about 3 minutes left. Any other questions from the audience, Danielle, before we
We do
wrap?
not have any questions at the moment. I think we have a couple of other wrap-up slides here. I did drop links into our partner success stories, so thank you for sharing that data and those outcomes. If you want to read the full story about each of those outcomes and how we got there, please go ahead and check that out. And then I did also include the case study for NAU, so that's in there as well.
Love it. Terrific. And we'd love to stay connected with you. As I mentioned, that Danielle will send out that survey, or so please respond to that. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to connect with me. My contact info is here. I'm sure Danielle in chat also provided my LinkedIn. So please feel free to reach out to me there as well. We always love talking to our university partners and prospective institutions. So we'd love to learn how we might be able to help you. So, Holland, Alyssa, thank you again. We very much appreciate it.